I'd like to call the meeting to order for September 14th, 2021 of our regular Board of Ed meeting. Could we please stand for the invocation by Mr. LeBlanc?
All right, good evening all. I'd like to take a moment with two recent events, and actually as part of it, one upcoming this weekend with the remembrance of Miss Hall, who was on the board set for this Saturday, and also for the anniversary of the 20th anniversary of the 9/11 attacks that just happened this past Saturday. So if we could just take a moment. Thank you. Pledge of Allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. God bless America. Thank you, Mr. LeBlanc. Fire evacuation is 2 exits from the chambers, one to your rear of the chambers out to the parking lot, and one to my left, your right, and left out the door to the rear parking lot. Can we have a roll call, please?
Mr. LeBlanc,
Here.
Mrs. LeBlanc,
Here.
Mrs. Pickett,
Here.
Mr. Ryder,
Here.
Mrs. Thurston, Mr. Ungary,
Here.
Mrs. Acree,
Here.
Mrs. Cushman,
Here.
Chairman Krusell.
Here. I'd like to welcome Ms. Pickett to our board for the next few months. Thank you for joining us. Board guests. We have tonight the JFK Building Committee, and I'll have them come up and introduce themselves. And I'm assuming they have a presentation, so please, Mr. Daigle, and I see a few members from the committee. Thank you for coming. If we need another chair, just grab one. And just got to make sure you use the microphones or the center mic. The floor is yours.
All right. Well, I'm here again. So it's been doing this 19 years now. And we finally got JFK under construction. So I'm going to allow my team. I'm Randy Daigle. I am fortunate enough to be the chairman of the JFK Building Committee. We have some tremendous members on our committee that have all contribute to every part of this building that you've seen. I'll allow our team to introduce themselves, and then we will start our presentation. We can start to the...
Marcus Brennan, Project Executive. Just you gotta talk into the mic. Marcus Brennan. Getting there. Testing. Are we good? Marcus Brennan, Project Executive with Gilbane.
Jill Lexi, Construction Administrator with JCJ Architecture.
Sam D'Agostino, Assistant Project Manager with CSG.
Chris Cycli, Project Executive, CSG.
So with that, we'll move right on. I guess we're going to have to say next slide to go to the next slide, so thank you. We're going to start with the budget, and then we're going to work our way through the construction end of it. So.
All right, so just to briefly overview the total construction budget. So the referendum total, $84,373,294. The ineligible costs, those are ineligible for reimbursement from the state grant process. We're tracking about $450,000 right now. That means eligible construction costs, $83,923,000. The eligible costs, which reflect the reimbursement rate of 70.71 for this project, are $59,342,000. The town share is the balance of that, the 29.29%, $25 million, and to date, we've been reimbursed by the state $22,411,000, and we have a pending $7 million payment due this month from them, in addition to the $22 million.
So one of the things I wanted to touch upon and do the budget numbers early is just we wanted to start off with some very good news. We are currently several $1 million under budget, and we are over halfway through construction at this point. So We were fortunate enough to get our prices before the pandemic hit, when everything skyrocketed. All our numbers were locked in. We, between the team, the architect, JCJ, CSG, and Gilbane, when we put the trade bid packages out, we pulled several packages as a safety net. So we took out of the budget, and if the numbers were good, we put them back in. We've been fortunate enough to put every single one of the items that we took out at the basic bid, we were able to put back into the project. So not only are we able to put everything back in, we are still several $1 million under budget. So I just wanted to start off with some good news. Next slide, please.
All right, so what you see here is the site logistics and the building logistics that we have. Everybody knows that obviously this is a phased project. So right now we're in what we've deemed as phase 6 of the job out of a total of 10 phases. So the maps you're looking at, the left map is obviously the site logistics. The green area, we completed that parking lot area this summer. That wraps around the back of the building. The back fields are still yellow as we're still wrapping those up now. And then as you go to the right picture, you can see the layout of the building. Everything in green has been turned over at this point, with the exception of the auditorium, which is imminent in the matter of a couple weeks. That'll be turned over as well. The yellow block in the middle of that green area is the gymnasium, which was always scheduled to go into this fall from a construction perspective. And that's on track to be turned over in October. And then we're working in the center hub area still, as well as the Red Wing currently.
So one of the things you're going to notice on the floor plan is, as a committee, we decided to have the events all in one area in the back of the building and back of the school, and have all the parking in there. Currently, the way it was, the entire school was open. You couldn't lock down wings, so if there was an event at night in the auditorium, the entire building was open for lack of security. People could roam. One of the things that we did for security reasons is that we isolated a lot of the night functions in the rear of the building, which also allowed to entirely encompass the parking. More than adequate parking is in the back of the building. At night, we can lock down the rest of the building. The custodians don't have to walk in every single floor to make sure nobody's hiding after an event. They literally would take 2 hours after an event, just literally walking around, making sure nobody's hiding anywhere. So, as you can see, everything is in one area of the building. Next slide, please.
So the top picture here is that north lot that I just mentioned. So that lot at this point is complete. All the sidewalks are in place, all asphalt in place. We are still in the process of finishing the landscaping around that area, and that'll wrap up in this fall. The bottom picture is the nice outdoor classroom, which is a all paver area. There's sidewalks that go to it, and will be able to be utilized for that purpose shortly.
One of the things you may notice that's missing in this picture is the 20-year temporary classrooms. That is where the site, the north lot, is where they were. So now they're going to have a beautiful outdoor classroom area to enjoy. Next slide, please.
So continuing on the site, the upper picture is the brand new basketball courts. They were just this weekend painted, and there's a drying process and now a sealing process that'll have to take place over the coming weeks. The lower picture is standing way out in the fields looking back at the baseball diamond. All the fields, the intent is to seed within this seeding season in the fall, so that come spring we'll have good growth. At worst case, by next fall you'll have fully established fields.
One of the items that we were able to put back into the fields, and I know Public Works is very excited about, is we were able to sprinkler the entire fields now. We did take that out early on. Like I said, we've done a lot of stuff you're going to be hearing throughout the project that was removed from the base bid just to get the price doable. But like I said, we were fortunate enough, and the entire fields will be sprinklered. Next slide, please. So
this is a shot looking at the new entrance. That's the right side of that building. The The red you see is the actual auditorium structure. The 3 doors you see are the entrance into the lobby area of that new addition, and then the left of that picture is the old gymnasium that's been there for years. We filled in an old parking area, if you will, in that portion of the site.
As you can see in the back, this is going to be the main entrance for the auditorium, the gym, any nighttime functions. One of the things that the architects did, which was awesome, instead of just putting these steel bollards up to protect cars from coming into the areas where they're not allowed, they architecturally placed these massive stones. It gives it a great look, and it allows kids to sit on and talk. We went there the other day, and each of these boulders had like 3 kids on them, and it was just so neat to see. So kudos to the architect on that. Next slide, please.
So this is the auditorium itself. This is just about the top row in the back that you're looking at. As I mentioned earlier, when we were looking at the phasing map, this area is very near completion at this point. The stage floor is now done. We're waiting for the draperies or the curtains to show up, and then we have theatrical lighting to program and some carpet to install. So we're very near completion in there now.
Next slide, please.
This is the lobby area just on the side of the auditorium through those triple doors that we looked at a moment ago from the outside. Again, this area is complete. We had some damage to some wood material we had to take out, which is the white you see in the distance in the picture. That'll get replaced with the same wood product that you see in the closer section of the picture there.
So as you all might have just heard, we had an area when that last storm came by. We had a temporary roof. The original roof was slated to just be repaired. But when they took all the polyiso, the insulation and the roofing material off it, they realized that the previous roofers, instead of cutting down to the thickness of the insulation, they cut through the metal deck. So when they pulled off the isolation, the polyiso, the insulation, the metal deck came off with it, so there was no structure left. So we had to put new metal decking down, which took several days to get and several days. So they put a temporary roof down, and with that little microburst that we had, it lifted up one corner. And so water got into the building, but due to the owner's rep, CSG, the architect, and Gilbane, not one day was missed. They just moved their crews to another area, and when that material came in, they jumped them back over there. So tremendous team effort, and every project's going to have issues. It's how they're dealt with that makes the difference, and that was a perfect example of working together. So, next slide, please.
Is on.
Yep, you're on.
So this is just the corridor that goes in between that auditorium lobby that Marcus just showed, and it goes into what is now the yellow wing, where the cafeteria and gymnasium are. You want to jump to the next slide?
So this is the old black wing that's been completely renovated at this point. The picture on the left, you're standing at the entranceway in that wing looking down the corridor. Picture on the right is one of the art rooms.
Next slide, please.
So this is also in that black wing. You can see the teachers have started to settle in during the past week of school. They already put stuff up on the bulletin boards, and you'll see in future pictures all of their items have been moved in, and all of their furniture and technology equipment has been moved into all the classrooms as well. Next slide. So this is one of the typical art classrooms in Blackwing. You can see we have all the new art tables installed, the new teaching tables, and as you can see in all the cabinets and things, the teachers have already started organizing and putting all their supplies in the rooms. And when we moved in all the teachers before school started, everyone was absolutely thrilled with how everything turned out and super excited to get into new spaces and asking us all questions. So it was a really fun experience before school started.
One of the things I want to mention, CSG is not only what we're calling the owner's rep. We don't have a facilities director in town, so they're doing the they're playing a couple roles. They're not only CA in it, construction administration overseeing the process of the construction, but they're acting as owner's rep, as our eyes and ears. And one of the things that Samantha's been doing, on top of the other stuff with Chris and the rest of their team, is logistics for move management. Not only did they tag every piece of equipment that was there, they determined where it was going to be stored, at what location, and where it came from, and then if it's going to be reused again, what room it's going to be used. I mean, I'm really simplifying it, but you could understand the logistics of thousands of pieces of furniture. It's just a circus, but it's amazing how it's up and all pulled together. So, again, kudos to the team. Next slide, please.
So here's another example of, this is the band room in Blackwing. You can see they already have their music stands. They've already started putting instruments and things in there. You can kind of see a little bit off to the, I guess, my right. There's been TV displays installed in every classroom that the teachers can hook up their laptops to show videos, PowerPoint presentations. In addition to that, there's Apple TVs that have been installed with all of these TV displays. And not only in, these specialty classrooms, but in all the, general English, social studies, math classrooms. There's also assistive listening. So it can help, especially now that teachers have been wearing masks, it helps the students hear them a little bit better while they're in class.
And I just wanted to add a little bit about the ceiling design in this room. As you can probably tell from the photo, there's sort of like a cranberry colored grid and then kind of like these white pyramids that are hanging in it. The reason we did that is we wanted to have sort of like a full volume of space for the music. So above that cranberry colored grid, there's a product that's spray applied on it for sound, and then also those pyramidal diffusers help with the improving the sound quality in the spaces.
Next slide, please.
So this is a shot of the servery section of the kitchen, fully up and operational at this point. In the background behind that picture is the kitchen area that's completely new as well.
Next slide, please.
And here's the old pool. Your brand new cafeteria.
So one of the things that you're going to notice is that when we designed this several years ago, we were told we didn't want to isolate children. We didn't want to have the small 4-person tables. We wanted everyone to be coming together as a group, as a team, as per classrooms. And then halfway through, the state says, oh, wait, why don't we start segregating and moving them? And now they're saying, okay, no, we'll bring them back together again. So this is how we started. Luckily, this is how they approved being finished. But there are several cafeterias. I mean, the cafeterias has sliding partitions, so you can separate 3 of them. If there's a function going on at night, you don't need all 3 of them open. They can close 1 or 2. There's a teacher's lounge and cafeteria, so they don't have to eat with kids, but they're within eye shot of the children. It's a beautiful layout, and acoustically, there's sound panels all along the wall. We have a certain acoustic rating we have to achieve from the band room, the choir, cafeteria, auditorium, and so you're going to see these little, some of them are called clouds, some of them are just products that are placed acoustical panels on the walls, but they all serve a purpose. Next slide, please.
So this is, we call it the extended caf. It's kind of the spillover area from the cafeteria that leads into the cardio room. You can see the door back there. But these all have high top tables, high top chairs, and it's just additional space for students to gather, eat lunch, or to have extra classes, or for teachers to meet, or anything like that.
Next slide, please.
So staying in that same area of the building, the picture on the right is the hallway directly between the gymnasium and the new cafeteria. The picture on the left is standing all the way back at the hub and looking down that same hallway. So the gym and cafeteria are in the distance. The new tile wall and display cases are on your left as you enter out of the hub there.
Next slide, please.
Gymnasium, as it currently stands about a week ago, though all the floor had been laid out as of today, the floor is completely laid and nailed in place. Gym equipment showed up this morning, so the balance of this week should be getting that gym equipment up, and in the coming 2 weeks after that, we'll be sanding and finishing the floor, and then getting the bleachers in, and we'll be wrapping up in October.
Next slide, please.
Locker room areas, so you have new boys and girls locker room. It's a full gang bathroom setup, and then as well as the lockers in the next room adjacent to that, basically positioned between the hub and the gym area within both wings.
Next slide.
Here's an initial shot of the white wing as it was nearing completion and furniture was just coming in. The small picture on the upper right is obviously the hallway, and the picture on the left is one of the general classrooms.
One of the things the architects did regarding the furniture, as you can see, they're not the standard square desks. There's more than enough room that the square desks offered, but what these desks allow the teacher to do is to rearrange. She could put 6 or 8 kids in one area and have a quiet session or work privately with them or with their homework or something. The rest of the class can work in another area. Even their desk, their area, they have a podium that they can walk around and teach in. And like Samantha was saying earlier, all the classrooms are wired with the additional sound system that she can talk over like a little microphone off her ear, and it comes in. Because right now, as you all know, when you have a mask, you really can't hear what the heck people are saying. So it just helps out. Again, fortunate enough to have the funds to be able to put this in. This is something IT asked for. It wasn't initially in, but it was due to the times. And again, we were lucky enough to be able to accommodate it. So they all have this, I'm not quite sure what the wording is, but it's additional sound system. Listening
Like
device.
assistive listening.
Assisted listening devices. There we go. Next slide, please.
So this is one of the typical science classrooms. This is actually in White Wing, which is the wing that the classroom wing rather, that we turned over for this school year. And you can see how, we have all the high top science tables and everything like that. So pretty self-explanatory. Next slide. So like Randy was mentioning before, you can see how the teachers have started, rearranging desks to kind of make groups so that it makes it easier for when they're teaching. Again, they've already all settled in, as you can tell, with all their decor and everything like that. Next slide. Here's, again, another example of how we utilize that desk style. And then you can see here, obviously, the TV, and you can kind of see the speakers in the ceiling as well for the assistive listening. Next slide. This is just the corridor on the first floor of White Wing. Next slide.
So these are pictures of the hub as it stands right now. The hub is partially under construction and partially being used as a temporary corridor to connect the wings for the kids. So we built out every single wall that goes around the old circle, if you will, and then we put up some additional temporary walls to facilitate the kids being able to get from wing to wing. So this is in a temporary safe condition that they're using as a hallway at the moment.
So one of the things the architect did, as you can see, we have glass walls on the interior walls of the hub. They don't have any direct light from the outside. So what they did, instead of having these dark rooms with no lights, a lot of these walls have glass walls. And they're insulated and they're soundproof. So it brings in more light. You're not just dependent upon the lights above your head and having shadows everywhere. So it really looks fabulous when you walk around it.
Thank you. We also have skylights in the new technology area. So we'll get some natural light in there. Next
slide, please. Thank you.
So here's the old auditorium. As you can see, the light coming through the deck, those skylights have been cut in. This photo is a day after we poured the new slab in there. So we had a lot of underground work in there. We had a lot of structural fill we brought in because if obviously you remember the old auditorium was a sloped floor. So that's all complete at this point. New slab is placed. Roof work is complete. We're in there building the masonry walls now that divide up the space into the future tech ed area.
Next slide, please.
The last two-story wing. So demolition is basically complete in that wing. We're putting together now the windows or the brick that goes around the sills and the precast sills of those windows. Windows are available and will be going in by the end of September. So both sides of the wing are in pretty similar status to what you see here. Go to the next slide. So this is a typical picture of the inside of that wing. You can see the windows are obviously not in place at this point. We're in the stages of MEP rough-in, so overhead ductwork, conduits, some HVAC piping, storm piping, all starting now. I don't have a picture of it, but the first floor area, we've started trenching for the new underground storm and sanitary piping, and that should take us through the month of September. The intent is to be weather tight with this wing in September and get it finished by the end of the calendar year.
So one thing I wanted to add, as you all know, when you drive by JFK, we have the media center sticking out. That is under 20 years old. So the state wouldn't allow us to do too much work in there. That would make it reimbursable. CSG was able to convince the state, since we used it as swing space, to allow a certain amount of that work that we're going to be doing in there to become reimbursable. So it allowed us to have some funds available. So we're going to be redoing the entire facade, taking the coping that you see stained, redoing all the facade work. We're going to be repointing. We're going to be fixing the roof areas. So that's going to look as new as the rest of the building. We really didn't want to have the entire building look brand new and have this thing projecting out that in 3 years is going to have to go to referendum to be fixed. So a lot of work with the architects, with Gilbane, and especially CSG, working with the state to convince them that the swing space was needed and it was part of the project. So they allowed us for those funds to be reimbursed back to the project, which allowed us to go and do some of these things. So again, tremendous team effort. Can't be happier. I'm constantly bragging about them. It just, nobody knows everything, but, it's the old saying, together we have answers. So with that, I'd like to open it up to questions.
Who wants to start the questions? Mr. Ryder.
So, Mr. Cycli, Mr. Daigle, and team, thank you very much. Thank you also for the tour a couple weeks back before school opened. Randy, I wanted to ask you, the section that you were showing us where the former outdoor, where the new outdoor classroom is going to be, where we used to have the trailers. Is that where we're thinking of the that'smybrick.com, where we're going to put in our JFK donated pavers?
No, I believe those are going to be around the flagpole. I'll let Jill.
Yes.
So that area will be around the new flagpole that is going up in front of the new auditorium entrance.
So
where
the public entrance.
Exactly, where we had all those boulders.
Yep.
It's going to be in that sort of general area.
Excellent. And how are we doing with that? Did we sort out the colors that we were emailing about with
Yes.
Bethany and I? Okay, good.
Yep.
Thank you. So I did want to ask about that. So again, if you go to enfieldpto.com/JFK, there's still time to purchase one of your bricks to donate to this fantastic new facility, and it'll live there forever, where it'll say, good luck, JFK students from the Ryder family, et cetera. We donated a brick as a group, as the current Board of Ed 2017, 2019. So I just wanted to ask about that. So thank you for that. Can we get a copy of that PowerPoint as well, just to get a closer look at things? Thank you. And again, thank you, everybody that's been involved. And I know it's not 5 people, it's 500 or more, but thank you to everybody for doing that. And thank you for clarifying what we're doing with the media center / library, because like you said, it's the one piece that juts out when you're on Raffia Road, and it's going to be the one space that's less new than the rest of our building.
Exactly.
So I'm glad that we're going to be cleaning that up as well. So thank you again to everybody involved. Thank you very much.
Mr. Blank.
Thank you very much. I had the pleasure of touring JFK a few weeks ago, and as a former student, it looks amazing. It's so much brighter than it used to be. I can't wait to see what the hub is going to look like. I told Randy before the meeting, you could always get a feel for where you were in JFK because just of the setup. And I couldn't, I think two of you heard me say, like, I don't even know where I am right now. It's like I'm in a completely different place.
That's a good thing.
It was simply amazing. And I noticed, so the art rooms are going to be moved to the black wing, so that gains us extra classroom space in the 3 wings. Which is great because those art rooms were rather large, and I think you could probably have taken at least a classroom and a half and made them a different classroom. And I like the lockers as well. The auditorium really was great because we know what the old auditorium looked like, and I kind of chuckled because I was expecting red, white, and blue seats, but it looks very nice, and it's just something positive for us to look forward to during some really difficult times right now. But I appreciate all your work on this, and I know it's going to be fantastic when it finishes, and I know the staff there is excited, and thank you very much. Great job as always.
The new auditorium is going to be able to sit comfortably 600 people.
Yeah, so that was interesting because I think somebody asked that on our tour, and it just, the size of it, just the way it's reconfigured, you couldn't see that. Like, you would almost think it looked smaller, but it was amazing. And then I loved the music room, and one of the first things I noticed when I walked in was the ceiling. And I thought that was great too. So it's just a lot more space, and just the brightness of it is really just makes a huge difference. So thank you.
Mr. Ungar.
Just a quick question. As we can all see, we're starting to get into the change of the season, and it won't be long before winter will be here. And I don't know if any special consideration has been given with regard to the parking lot and snow removal and where that'll be and how the logistics associated with that.
Yeah, that's all been taken care of, but I'll let them explain.
So at the moment, we have an overflow of parking. The school is essentially using the north lot and a part of the south lot, and they've allowed us to allow some of the contractors to park in the south lot, which is a gift at the moment. So as weather approaches, we will pull ourselves fully out if needed, and there'll be plenty of space to pile snow if needed.
One of the things, too, and you really have to know what you're looking at, one of the things the architects did, right against the curb, you'll see these giant 10 by 10 wood pieces, but they're not right up against the curb. They're about 4 feet, 5 feet past the curb. So what that would allow to do is allow them to put the snow and push it over the curb and then into the snow area without having to go up, damage the pieces. So the snow removal and the locations have already been designated. We went through the town approved them with the equipment they have, and the design was also, like I said, based on removal of snow. And it achieves the safetiness of the parking, and it also achieves the process of snow removal easily.
Thank you.
You're very welcome.
Miss Pickett.
Thank you very much. Just a couple of questions. One is, you mentioned assistive listening a couple times. Is that ADA compliant? Will it support students who might be hard of hearing and meet their needs?
Yep, absolutely. I think there's a way that it can connect to hearing aids.
Yep.
So yeah, it's ADA compliant.
Awesome. And timeline, are we on track?
Overall schedule?
Yep.
We are currently under budget and ahead of schedule.
Just wanted to have a second win there for you.
You got my message. Great.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Welcome.
And if anyone from the state is watching, this is how projects are done in Enfield. Ahead of schedule and under budget. They've been done by this gentleman right here for 19 years this way. And if anybody from the state wants to see how projects get done and how they're done, come on down, we'll show you. I'm assuming the boilers are all set? Because I like the nuts and bolts stuff. I don't care about classrooms.
Yeah, we are nearly there. The plant is built, and the piping
we don't
is
need
getting
we don't
filled.
need a trailer this year.
We do not need a trailer.
I did promise the mayor that I did not need a trailer this year.
We will hold that promise.
Okay. Other than that, I think these guys deserve a big round of applause. know there's some, I know one of the committee members out in the,
Yeah, I think we have a couple of
There's some?
Want to stand?
these guys meet every other Thursday for the last 2 years at least, if not more. And it's
Well, before that, we had a pre-ref.
commitment,
which
and it's
Scott was
words
on.
that I can't explain it. That's how talented these people are and how they've done. So, and again, like I said, ahead of schedule, under budget. That's the Enfield way. So,
Well, we had a lot of help from,
Yeah.
Andrew and Chris. I mean, it started early on with the pre-ref when Scott was on it. Everybody that was involved in this years ago before he even went to referendum. And we've had different things where they just one phone call away and it was resolved. So it is a town and team effort. Our design team met with all the users. We didn't design this in a vacuum. We designed it for the end user. The architects and contractors and CSG understands it's easy to draw a pretty picture, but when it's all said and done, they're gone, and we're stuck with it. They made sure that everything that we have done here was lesson learned from other projects. So we were very fortunate to reap the benefits from the
and
experience.
even before this
of the
building
team.
committee, there was the pre-ref committee, which was the Joint Facilities Committee, worked with the architect and
Correct.
and came up with a brilliant class number one, Class A design. So,
Thank you all very much.
thank you.
Thank you.
You are free to go.
Good luck.
All right, with that, great news. Let's move on to the superintendent's report. So he'll continue the great news.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. First of all, thanks to all these folks who've endured some of the phone calls that we've made, and now I feel guilty calling them last-second cycle leave. Every time there's a change order, we have to have a meeting. Chris is notorious for calling like, I need a meeting tomorrow. So now I feel bad after all this. So I'm sorry. But I'll continue with good news to start with, that we're open. And it was a monumental task to get our schools open 5 days a week, full-time again. That wasn't just done at this table or in this room, was done throughout all of our buildings and all of our families in town. I know it was probably more challenging than some would have liked at this point, especially when we left in June thinking we're going to get back to some sort of regular semblance of what we all expect school to be. And the reality is it wasn't. That's not without our challenges. So before I get into the bad part, I want to remind everybody and thank everyone that came together to make our opening as successful as possible. And that starts and ends with our staffs. I could sit up here every other week and give an update, but I'm not the one answering, parents coming to the door, especially the first day of school for a kindergartner in the midst of a pandemic still. Those are the principals, those are the teachers, those are the secretaries, those are the nurses, those are our paras, those are our lunch aides. All of those people who made the first day of school the special day that it should be. And as we walked around buildings, and I broke my own rule on the whole visitors thing because I was not sitting in my office all day, I would stop in, try to be unannounced, and I would, for the first time in a while, get a chance to just go and talk to kids, and they had no idea who I was because I was masked. And I would ask them, are you happy to be back? How's your first day going? And I'm pleased to report, even at the high school, I did not get one student tell me anything negative about being back in school. So all the other stuff that we deal with was worth it to assume that the smile was real on the other side of their mask. So that's the good news. All that being said, I would be lying if I said it's been easy. Unfortunately, we're having flashbacks to where we were last year, particularly with our phones ringing all weekend with having to contact trace and having to notify people. And unfortunately, we're not out of the woods with regards to the way we have to operate. Just this weekend alone, I spent it on the phone, and I can't take all of the glory of doing that. You've all met our nursing supervisor, Nurse Jess. Thank goodness we have her, because by the time I get the call, she's already working on it, and the school nurses are already aware at 9 o'clock on a Sunday that there was a case in their class. The promising piece of that, which is different from last year, is the places that we have had cases, the number of students that are required to quarantine isn't as high. A year ago, you may have heard that a building was closed or an entire classroom was shut down. We're fortunate thus far that we haven't had to do that based on quarantining alone. And we're also fortunate that we haven't had as many staff members that are required to quarantine, so that's why we haven't been on the news that we have to shut down like some other districts have. That said, it is a tightrope. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. We operate each day with the notion of we're going to do everything we can today to make sure we stay open and that we open tomorrow. I don't want to sugarcoat it and say there's going to come a day where we can't, because I would be disingenuous sitting up here saying we're never going to close again. It may be for different reasons than we all think. It may not be because there's a large outbreak. It may be that we don't have the staff to accommodate our kids in the building. One of the things that I know I mentioned last time, and I wanted to say it again this week, to ask families who are watching, especially those with young ones, and I know what it's like when my kids, bus was 5 minutes late. It was, I'm the calm one in my house, so I would get a little bit nervous. My wife is a different story. So we understood that, but I tried to set the table that we are the possibility of us running behind on certain days. We know where your kids are. We know they're safe. It's just going to take us a little bit in some cases, primarily because, like every other school district in the country, but you see signs not just in Enfield but in all of our surrounding towns, bus drivers wanted. Our friends at Smith have done more than I could have ever asked of them to make sure that we're getting in every day, but there are certain things that are beyond their control. If we don't have enough drivers to run, we can't get our kids to school. People, when you call Smith Bus, that usually pick up the phone to answer a question from a parent or from the school, sometimes the phone wasn't ringing or the phone wasn't being picked up on the other end. That's because they had their office staff driving buses. That's because they had the owners driving buses, fixing buses in the middle, bringing a bus to somebody in the middle of the road that may have had a technical issue so they can get kids home. When we say all hands on deck, if I was licensed, I'd be driving a bus tomorrow. If any of you are licensed, please talk to me when this is over, because that's how desperate we're getting at this point in time. So I will ask for everyone's patience. Again, I really, really am annoyed that we're still talking about this, just like all of you are, just like all of you in the audience are. But we have to deal with what's in front of us at the moment. Everything that we do from this point forward is under the notion of we need to keep our kids in school. That's it. I know there's a lot of other topics that we sometimes get into at meetings, and which is fine. I understand that's part of our job, but please don't take this in any way, shape, or form of being disrespectful. Right now, I can speak for this table, and I normally don't call on Miss Alecki, but she's the first line of defense when something goes wrong, too, in the office, and she takes the call. How many times did we talk yesterday? At night. We have tunnel vision right now, and that's not to be disrespectful, but our priority is making sure we can keep these buildings open, and we're doing everything humanly possible to do that. I just thought it was incumbent upon me to tell you and the public that it's not as easy as, we're going to school tomorrow. It's trying to make sure we have the appropriate staff and resources to safely get our kids in. And it's going to be a struggle. It is a struggle. It's going to continue to be a struggle for a little while longer. We know that. It is what it is. But we're going to do everything we can. So if I don't get back to one of your questions right away, it's not that I'm not interested. It's not that I don't care about your topic. It's just because one of us are probably huddled somewhere trying to figure out, are we going to make it tomorrow? Because it's become a day-to-day operation. So that said, that's going to conclude the superintendent's report. I'm actually going to excuse myself because I wasn't being rude to our guests, and I apologize. I was getting text messages during the presentation for the very reasons I was just explaining to you guys. So I may have something new to report when I come back, or I may not. But I do have to take a phone call that's totally related to what I said. So I'm going to excuse myself for a moment. It's not that I don't want to listen to the audiences, but I have to take this call. So if you excuse me, that'll conclude the superintendent's report. I hope I'll be back.
Thank you, sir.
That's the fastest I've seen him move.
All right, so next is audiences, and we'll start with Matt Schmidt. And state your name and address for the record, and we'll start the timer. Good night. Good night. Thank you again. Thank you very much. Don't forget your thumb drive. Or do you want him to keep it? Okay.
Matthew Schmidt, 55 North Main Street. Good evening, Board of Education members. The last time I was here speaking out against the mask mandate, I spoke about courage. The courage of the parents asking against masking their kids, and the courage I wish this board to exhibit. Sadly, I was disappointed with the responses I received from this board, but they revealed just how difficult courage can be. So now the question I want to pose to you all is this. Where exactly is your line in the sand? At what point do you say, I have no choice but to act against these mandates? Would it be enough if a parent showed you evidence of physical harm to their child caused by masking? Or do you require documented proof provided by a physician? Would an Enfield doctor's word be enough? Or does it need to come from a Yale epidemiologist? Or perhaps a team of epidemiologists? And how about psychological harm, emotional, developmental? And is there a measure of severity of harm, some threshold to surpass before you act? Will the harm to one child be enough to make you stand up and vote down the mask mandate? If not, what number of children need to suffer from masks before you act? Or is it a percentage, a ratio of some sort? What is your metric to act? Maybe your line in the sand is further out. Will it be when they soon mandate the vaccine for children despite barely a year of safety data? Or will it be when they inevitably still require masks in school even after mandating a vaccine for children? Will you act then? Will you ever act? Maybe there is no line in the sand for you. I'm sure the issue of masks is not why you became a member of the Board of Ed. So you keep your head down, you take seriously the fearful words of some legal counsel advising you of the personal financial danger you may find yourself in if you don't do as you're told. Here you are, wielding power during an era of great distress and great importance, and yet you see yourself bound. Maybe even thankfully. You may actually find it unfortunate that what the times demand of you, and are grateful for a way out of the responsibility. Well, even if you fear personal liability were you to vote to ignore the mandate, you could still do something. I am not going to detail here the many political maneuvers you could take advantage of, as some are fraught with pitfalls you may not have the stomach for. But there must be safe ways to fight the state edicts. How about holding a press conference decrying the mandates which are set to be extended once again? Or why not attend one of the many protests against the mandates, possibly even speaking at one? Or run a full-page ad in the JI detailing how you are forced to impose these mandates under duress. Your hands may be tied, but your voice has not been silenced. And as a Board of Ed member, your voice carries. It amplifies ours. Be our voice. You are the Enfield Board of Ed, not the Enfield chapter of the Connecticut State Department of Ed. Be our voice, not theirs. Thank you.
And Amanda Marquez. Name and address for the record, please.
Amanda Marquez, 8 Hoover Lane. At your last meeting, I spoke regarding the mask mandate and the emotional, mental, and physical harm that it has on our children. 11 other parents also sat here and voiced their concerns about the damages these mandates are causing. We fully understand that we are under the governor's order until September 30th, and while we are hopeful you would hear our concerns and stand with us, I was not surprised by your responses. One guy, I can't take on the state. The mandate handcuffs you and you don't have an option. Imagine if every time we faced opposition, we thought these things. Imagine if we taught our children this when they were up against a fight. Well, you're just one person, so nothing you can do. Just give up. I'm just one mother, and yet I sit here again asking you to stand with us and advocate for our children. We were also told to take our argument to the state level, to the representatives, legislators, and the governor. It's naive to think that we haven't done so already. I've personally done hours of research, made numerous phone calls, and have written the appropriate emails. So, of course, I would also come to voice my concerns to my own local Board of Education and Town Council. In 2 weeks, the decision very well could be left up to the local level to decide on the mask mask mandates. That's why I'm here. We've gone through society over the last year and a half with measures in place that we now find out were ineffective. That's another comment made by the board at the last meeting. You are correct on that. As we get further into the research around COVID, we learn that certain procedures are not effective in prevention. Experts who reviewed evidence from the Spanish flu of 1918 have concluded that masks failed to control infection, that the masks were worn until filthy and used in ways that offered little to no protection, exactly the same way they're worn in 2021. Is it going to take us 100 years to realize as a society that the masks are as ineffective now at stopping the spread as they were in 1918? As mentioned before, there are numerous studies and research on the ill effects of masking children for extended periods of time. Since the last board meeting, have any of you taken the time to do your own personal research into the safety of prolonged masking? It's a very personal decision to wear a mask. That was also said by a board member last meeting. You're exactly right. It is a personal decision, and it's one that should be made on an individual basis by parents for their own child, not a blanket mandate by governing officials. The definition of liberty is the power of choice. Most people would agree that this is the way a society should function: liberty and justice for all, words we just stood and recited. Our government is telling us they know better than we do. They make the best choice for my child. Has Governor Lamont ever met your son or daughter? Does he sit with them after school and ask about their day? Is he in the doctor's office deciding medical care for them? Yet we are to believe that he is he is taking our child's personal well-being into consideration more so than their own mother or father. It is clear that the fight for our freedom to choose not to mask our children will be ours alone. As a board, you will not come together and advocate with us. With that being said, I'm at least asking you to have at least enough conviction to say that parents make the best decision for their children, not the government and not our Board of Education. So if and when the decision to continue to mask our children does land in your lap, you make the right choice. One made not based on fear, but based on courage to allow the parents to choose. Another quote from last meeting: for masks, there's a simple solution, and one that doesn't mean tossing out our individual civil rights. And it goes like this: those who choose to wear a mask can do so, and those who do not are not mandated against their free will.
Thank you. Anyone else want to speak? Anyone else? I declare public communications closed. Board member comments. Before we start, though, I need to suspend the rules, and I need someone to make a motion to add executive session for prospective supply contract.
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Ryder, seconded by Ms. LeBlanc. Any discussion? Hand vote? Roll call vote, please.
For.
Yes.
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 Yes. Thank you. So with that said, we'll start with Mr. LeBlanc.
All right. I did have a couple questions for our superintendent, but I know he's on an important call. I guess one of my questions to him, when he gets a chance to review this meeting, is any kind of presentation on the federal money that's been trickling down the pipeline that could be presented to this board and how we plan on spending it. Maybe a presentation or something of that sort would be helpful to not only us as a board, but the community as well, because I know it's millions upon millions of dollars, so I would appreciate that. Secondly, my question comes into concern about students not eating in the lunchroom. The school I work at, in the last school year, they did sit at individual desk in the lunchroom and ate at an individual table. But they now have allowed the students to return to the cafeteria as normal at a full-size lunch table. I would just like a reason as to why Enfield hasn't done that yet. But I'm sure I'll get an answer. I'm sure he'll get back to me on both those questions. Besides that, I do have some. These came from Kite. It's and I brought these because Brianna Beckstrom wanted me to show them off. I don't know for the camera. Yeah, thank you, Alex. So here's one. This is called We Spy, and this exact poster board will be Kite hopes to engage with local businesses and organizations to put these up, and it has a QR code on it, and when families are in a waiting room or a grocery store or restaurant waiting to be seated or whatnot, they can scan the QR code and a bunch of fun short games come up. I Spy, what was some of the other ones? Simon Says, Guess What's Behind My Back, and those are just a few of the games. It's going to change monthly as well. And Kite really looks forward to partnering with all the local businesses and organizations to incorporate this and get families engaged. The second one is one more poster board, Alex, is a Parent Leadership Academy. This one is in partnership with Enfield Public Schools through Kite, and parents and caregivers are encouraged to participate in this opportunity to learn about the Enfield community while exploring and developing leadership skills. They are taking applications. They can be found online at enfieldkite.org or on the Enfield Public School website. If there are any questions, you can contact the PLA coordinator, Melissa Griffith, at melissaroy@cox.net. I'll spell that out. It's MALISSAROY@cox.net. Besides that, that's about it for tonight, so thank you.
Thank you, Mr. LeBlanc, and if Mr. Drezek does return, we'll come back to those questions. Ms. Acree, would you like to have any comments?
I just want to say thank you, any parents that were here last week for welcoming to the board at the last meeting. I am looking forward to working with everyone up here, and I know that we have to work together, resolving the issues that we hear that the parents and the residents of Enfield are concerned about. And yes, we do have to do our homework and our research, but I feel that we will resolve and try to resolve the issues as best as we can. And these resolutions are for all children, all parents, and all residents. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Cushman.
The United States has long been known as a melting pot. Since its founding, millions of people from other nations around the world have immigrated here to make America their home and to pursue the American dream. Our Constitution is known as the supreme law of the land and has been called the greatest governing document ever written by man. It has laid the foundation for the most successful nation in the history of the world. We have rights and we enjoy freedoms that most people in the world never have the opportunity to. Our very first Chief Justice of the U.S. Supreme Court, John Jay, said, "Every member of this state ought diligently to read and to study the Constitution of his country and teach the rising generation to be free. By knowing their rights, they will sooner perceive when they are violated and be better prepared to defend and assert them." It was on September 17, 1787, that the delegates to the Constitutional Convention met for the last time to sign the document that they had created. In observance of this significant event, in 2004, Constitution Day became an official U.S. holiday. In May of 2005, the United States Department of Education backed the law and announced that every educational institution that receives federal funds should, on Constitution Day, teach the Constitution. But sadly, only 10% of public schools in America actually do this. Constitution Day, along with Independence Day and President's Day, is an important part of the cultural heritage of our nation because it recognizes the value of the American experiment and the success of a nation of free people whose rights and liberties are protected by a written Constitution. Constitution Day happens to be this Friday, and it is my hope that the students of our town will have an opportunity to learn about our Constitution. There's lots of websites, but in particular, archives.gov and constitutionday.com are helpful sites that have great activities for students by grade level. I just wanted to share that with our community. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Cushman. Mr. Ungar.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I want to first start by welcoming Amanda Pickett to our board and look forward to serving with you. Just to start with some good news, that while the superintendent was speaking, I received a text and a photograph of my brand new granddaughter that was born minutes ago. So that is her name. Her name. I don't have any weights or measurements yet, but I had a nice picture of her, so Birdie Ungeier is now a breathing member of the of us here. So I'm very, very happy here right now. So with that. On Saturday, I had the privilege of attending and actually speaking at, there was a meeting that was held at the gazebo here in town on Saturday morning. And several folks were asked to speak, and there were many in attendance there. The mayor was there, superintendent, our chairman was there, and representatives of our police force were there, and so the prayers that were brought forth were, and I'm just going to tell you what they were. There were those that were affected by 9/11. Someone prayed for the schools and the school board. There was a prayer that went out for the students and the faculty of our schools, for our town and surrounding towns, for our government, and for spiritual healing for our nation. And I was proud and privileged to be a member of that. And I am a believer, and I do believe that God does hear our prayers and that He acts on them. So I'm very encouraged by that. I also had a chance after that on Saturday to attend the opening ribbon cutting of a splash pad that opened up at the Parkman School, which was really amazing because there were the toddlers and the young kids were there, and there was the ribbon cutting, and they pushed the button, and when you could see the joy on these young people's faces, you really understand how important something like that is to a lot of young kids, and they were just having a tremendous time. And so when I look at, like the presentation we had here this morning, the tour we took, we saw what's being done at JFK, a world-class auditorium and gymnasium are being built, a fantastic band room and the science rooms, and all of the things that are being done here in town to improve the quality of education and the quality of life here in Enfield. I applaud the leadership that brought all this to happen. It makes me proud as a member and a resident of Enfield that we are mindful about improving the quality of our schools, the quality of our education, and the quality of life here in Enfield. It's going to make us a more attractive community for many. I talked to a young couple that was there who brought their toddler, and they couldn't believe that they had a splash pad that was just right up the street. They had brought their kids to Agawam, and they had to pay money, and now they have one right in their backyard, and they say, oh, it's fantastic that Enfielders doing these kinds of proactive things. So I wanted to just make mention of that. And then taking note on some of the speakers last week, there's one thing that was said that caused me some concern, and I thought, and I'll tell you what that was. Somebody spoke last week, and I don't know exactly who it was, but they were talking about masks. And they were talking about the masks that we wear, or the masks that we have, don't do anything they're ineffective to coronavirus. Well, I thought that was unusual, so I thought I would go out and do a little homework, and so I went to Walmart, I went to Walgreens, CVS, and I looked at all of the masks that they had, trying to find masks that say that they're good for coronavirus, and I could not find one mask that said it's good for the prevention of coronavirus. So this was what I read on the majority of them, because I took a photograph of it, and it is a warning on the mask. It shows you how to apply it and how to put it on. And this mask is not a respirator. It's intended for general purpose practices. When properly worn, it reduces potential contact by the wearer to fluids, but does not eliminate the risk of contracting any virus, disease, or infection. Change the mask immediately if contaminated with blood or bodily fluids. This is disposable item, single-use item. So I'm like, that's what I saw in the majority of these things. And now maybe I understand why some people decide to wear 2 or 3 or whatever, because if 1 is ineffective, then maybe 2 is effective. I just don't know. But I thought it was interesting. I really couldn't believe it until I went out there and looked at it and saw it for myself, that these masks that we're requiring our kids to wear apparently don't do anything to protect them from viruses. I don't know if that makes sense to you, but it doesn't really make a lot of sense to me. And so I'm going to continue to try to learn more about this. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ungar. You want to go through the rest for it, sir? Jonathan, you want to ask your questions? Or Mr. LeBlanc, do you want to ask your questions of Mr. Drezek?
He still looks pretty engaged, so why don't we go around it? Unless.
Okay, let's go around and we'll catch up at the end. Mr. Ryder.
So first and foremost, I want to welcome Ms. Pickett. Thank you for joining us. Now you're in that seat because we've lost one of our close friends, mentor, and all-around proponent and supporter of education, Mrs. Joyce Hall. So as a reminder, the Joyce Hall Memorial and Book Drive is this Saturday, September 18th, starting at 1 p.m. at Leet Stevens on South Road. Anybody that comes, and again, it's optional, but anybody that comes, we encourage you to donate a book. There'll be representatives from Kite there who will be manning our book collection bins. If you show up and think to yourself, oh, I forgot the book, and you want to leave $1, any cash or checks that are donated will go directly to the First Readers Association of Enfield, where Joyce was most recently a treasurer, but also had a huge hand in getting that program off the ground. And she was always one of the first people that you'd meet at any First Readers ceremony, checking folks in and making sure they knew where to go. And she was proud of all of our kids. She was a champion for our youth and for our education. So again, that's this Saturday at 1 at Leet Stevens. And her family will be there. And we encourage anybody that worked with her, that knew her, or that cared about her, or the things that she cared about. We welcome anybody that wants to stop by. So I wanted to mention that first of all, after welcoming you. I don't know, Chairman Kozel, if you were going to go over some of our, yep. We have a few new assignments because of some new members and because of losing Joyce. So Chairman Kozel will go over that. Thank you. And now why we're here is for the schools and our kids. So here's an update on some schools. Hazard Memorial School's first PTO meeting of the school year is happening right now, so they are missing out on this fantastic meeting because they're having the first PTO meeting. It is virtual through Teams. It started tonight at 7, and when I get the date for October's meeting, I will pass that along. Also, on September 22nd at Hazardville, they'll be doing their open house. It is not by grade, but actually by last names alphabetically. So Mrs. Hunter has communicated that to all the students. We've also shared that at enfieldpto.com/HMS, and it's also on their Facebook page. So please come during your slots. So again, we can just kind of space people out. It is not by grade, but alphabetical. So if your last name starts with A, you're going to go at a certain time, no matter what grade you're in. The teachers will be there throughout the evening, but we're just trying to space out our guests. So we wanted to pass that along. It's also Spirit Week at HMS. We're going to kick off the year with a Spirit Week, the last full week of September 20th through 25th. There's a schedule. We have a Crazy Hat Day and Crazy Socks Day and all that good stuff. So again, Mrs. Hunter has sent that out, and we've forwarded that and shared that on enfieldpto.com/HMS. My updates for Eli Whitney. Eli Whitney is also participating in Spirit Week, as they are sister schools. So again, September 20th through 25th. Each day there's a different event. You wear your grade school colors on certain days, etc. The open house at Eli Whitney is going to be on Monday, September 20th from 5:30 to 7:30. Again, similar to what they're doing in Hazardville, it's alphabetical. It is not by grade. So please check the communications that went out recently from Mrs. Flanagan, and they're also posted on enfieldpto.com/Eli Whitney. They're having their first PTO meeting of this school year the same night as open house. It'll be from 5 to 6 in person. It's going to be just outside the building under a tent. After that, we may go to Zoom to be determined. And I got a couple of questions about graduation, the date, etc. A friend of mine has a senior that she's been a mentor for many, many years. So I just wanted to remind everybody that we set the calendar for the school year in the February of the year prior. So the current school year that began last Tuesday, we set the calendar for that last February with, a year and a half notice, if you will. So, barring an incident with Mother Nature, graduation is on June 22nd. So that way, people that are traveling, grandparents coming in from out of town, et cetera, we keep that date as is. And I just thought since Miss Jamie asked me that question, I would just remind everybody that that's one of the reasons that we do that, specifically with the graduation dates. So I wanted to mention that as well. And I thought I had one more. I believe that is everything. Thank you very much. I am very pleased with the reports from my two inside sources in grade 5 at Eli Whitney and grade 8 at JFK, that the first 5 or 6 days so far of school have gone well. And I'm glad that the kids are back in school in person 5 days a week. And I'm glad that things like masks make that possible. So I am proud that we are wearing masks, and I hope it continues. And I just want to see everybody safe and healthy. And I would suggest that if you saw labels on a mask, Mr. Ungeier, maybe buy a different brand. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ryder. Ms. Thurston.
Okay, just really quick. Mrs. Acree, I have to apologize. I did not welcome you at the last meeting, so welcome to the board.
Ditto.
And Amanda, welcome to the board. You ladies are in for the ride of your lives. Be prepared. But I just wanted to welcome you to the board. And congratulations, Grandpa. I know I follow your daughter-in-law on Instagram, and I was so excited to little birdie to come. So congratulations.
Thank you.
So that's it.
Thank you. Ms. LeBlanc want to go next, or Ms. Pickett? Go ahead.
All right, it feels interesting to sit on this side of the table. So first, I want to say that I am honored and humbled to be sitting here. I will never fill the shoes of Joyce, and I won't pretend that I can or would. She was one of a kind, but I'm going to do my best to come to this seat with an open heart, a listening ear, a reflective mind, and a commitment to our students. And that is what I vow to do sitting here. So in that note, I want to thank the administrators, the teachers, the staff, the custodians, the bus drivers, the secretaries, students and families for the start of the year. My little one just started STOW, Early Learning Center STEAM program. I was so worried that she was going to be scared, nervous, crying, clinging to my leg. She loves school, and she is excited to be there, excited to be in her classroom, and I honestly can't thank the staff there at Stowe, and personally my first graders at Enfield Street School, an amazing work that they're doing there. I, as well, was able to attend the 9/11 Remembrance Parade this weekend with my family, and we visited the splash pad, not at the grand opening, but afterwards. I know there's lots of comments out there about the size and what's happening, but I will tell you that my little guy and daughter went out there with a big smile on their face, and they did not care about how big it was or what was happening there. They were fully enjoying it. So again, I thank the community for the work that you all do and doing our best to make Enfield a place for families. I can't sit here without some of Joyce's updates, so I took some quick notes to make sure I honored that appropriately. So Stowe opened last week with their integrated program and some of their other programs in the building, but Head Start and STEAM started yesterday, so awesome for that. Kite, John, thanks for doing a great job covering all of that stuff. I just wanted to give a personal congratulations to Brianna Beckstrand. She couldn't be a better advocate for families and students in our community, and I'm so excited to see her stepping into that coordinator role. ERFC, there's a Fall for Enfield Community Festival on October 2nd from 10 to 4 at the Town Green. There's also a farm-to-table dinner that evening from 6 to 10 at the Town Green, and there are tickets online. So those are my fill-in for Joyce announcements, and again, honored and humbled to be here.
Thank you. And Ms. LeBlanc.
So yes, we are a family of 9. We welcome Jean and Amanda to our group, and I'm appreciative of meeting you both and, going forward the next 4 meetings. So this was weird. I had my last, well, not me, but the LeBlanc family had their last first day of school in Enfield Public Schools after, I think, 16 years. It was kind of sad for me because I'm nearing the end of my Enfield Public Schools journey, but it's been an exciting, well, as far as having kids that attend school, it's been a journey, and I'm excited to see what the last 9 months are going to bring, and I will be there on June 22nd, the firm graduation date, like Scott said. It's always June 22nd. SafeGrad appreciates that when they book the venue. Enfield High School football actually kicked off their weekend this week. The freshmen played on Thursday afternoon against Newington. They lost by 1 touchdown, but it was an excellent fight. Varsity also put up a good fight against Newington on Friday evening, and then JV won against, I believe, Windsor on Saturday afternoon. And the first home game is this Friday at Enfield High, and they will be playing Windsor. So there were some updates that went out from the school district about spectator policies. So if you have any questions about those, check the website. So there's that. I'm going to take a minute. I would like to address the 2 people who spoke tonight. I was at the town council meeting, so I saw you speak as well last week. And I appreciate your commitment to how you feel about having the kids wear masks. And I think what you both said was poignant and thought-provoking this evening. I think for me, and I think I had said this, 2 weeks ago, like, you kind of can tell where I stand on this issue by just, walking into council chambers. I think what's interesting to me is that I guess people assume that I base my decision on fear, when it's really more or less based on, personal experience for me and having people close to me who have lost people in COVID, and then having a daughter who's in the medical profession. So that's where I take my feelings on the masks. One of the things that's so hard today is, and you use the term, like, draw the line in the sand, and I just feel like we're all in a position where we feel like we have to do that, right? Because there's just like no medium anymore. There's just like, we can't agree to disagree type of things that were going on. But I want you to know that I do appreciate you coming out and sharing your feelings with me. It makes me think. It'll make me do some research. But I guess I want you to know where I come from, since you kind of asked tonight, where do you stand on this? And then that's where I stand. But you are advocating for your children and what you believe in. So I appreciate that. And we can agree to disagree on certain things. But please know that your voices are being heard. So that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. So again, I want to welcome Ms. Pickett to our board. And like always happens, I'm the last one, and everything I want to say is said. So like you said, trying to fill Ms. Hall's shoes, that's not what we're expecting.
You can go first next time.
No, I don't. No, that's fine. I like going last because you guys say everything. But we're not, we just welcome. It was like I welcomed Ms. Creed 2 weeks ago. So welcome aboard. And with that, we need some housekeeping because after Mr. Salazar resigned and the passing of Ms. Hall, we've had some committee appointment changes. So I'm going to run through the whole list here just to get everyone. So Buzz Robotics Liaison is myself. JFK hasn't changed, it's myself and Ms. Thurston. CREC Council Delegate is Mr. Ryder. Stowe Early Learning Center liaisons are Mr. LeBlanc and Ms. Pickett. Curriculum Standing Committee is Jonathan LeBlanc is the chair. Ms. Cushman, Ms. Thurston, who will probably be appointed secretary this Thursday.
Wait, what?
Of the curriculum. Ms. Acree is the alternate. Ms. Pickett is the alternate. Safegrad hasn't changed. It's Ms. LeBlanc. Enfield Suicide Prevention hasn't changed. It's Mr. LeBlanc and Ms. Thurston. Leadership hasn't changed. Finance Committee is Mr. Ungeyer is the chair, Ms. Cushman, and Ms. LeBlanc is the secretary, and myself is alternate, and Mr. Ryder is alternate. Joint BOE Town Council Facility Committee hasn't changed. Joint BOE Town Council Insurance Committee hasn't changed. Parliamentarian is Mr. Ryder. Policy Committee is Mr. Ungeyer's chair, Ms. Cushman, Mr. Ryder's secretary, Mr. LeBlanc's alternate, Ms. LeBlanc is alternate, and Joint Security hasn't changed, and ERFC is Ms. Pickett. So that will be coming out in your updates this Friday. And for school, Adopt a School, the only changes is Ms. Acree will handle Prudence Crandall, and we added Ms. Pickett to the Stowe Early Learning Center and also to KITE. So that's my housekeeping. And I forgot, Mr. LeBlanc had some questions for Mr. Drezek. Would you like to do them now, or?
Are you in a position to take questions, or would you? We can wait. We can wait if it's best for you.
I can't promise you any answers, but
Okay. Well, I just didn't want to take away from whatever you had to handle. My first question is just in regards to the money that's coming from the trickling down from the federal government all the way down to us. Is there any way in the somewhere near future we can get a presentation or some kind of dialogue on where Enfield Public Schools is allocating that money?
yeah, you're going to get, well, you'll have a clearer picture by the end of the evening about some aspects, and then actually the town manager and I are in conversations because we try to do some joint things together about possibly presenting to the board and the council as a whole. We're actually supposed to meet next week about preparing that too. So yes, the short answer is yes, you'll get it in the near future. You'll find out that there are some things that might be fluid that might change that.
Thank you. And then my second question, it's my understanding that students in the Enfield Public Schools are not utilizing the cafeteria to eat lunches. Okay. Is there a reason, minus the short answer of COVID, on why that may be? I only ask because I mentioned earlier the school I'm working at, they were in a similar boat as Enfield where kids ate individually, but this year they are back to lunch tables and kids eating lunch as they were in 2019, minus putting on the mask and taking the mask off.
the question is being able to keep them separated enough in that environment under the current guides that we have. Ironically, one of the cases that we have our biggest amount of students in quarantine right now is because of a lunch situation that happened on the day it happened to be raining. So the kids couldn't eat outside, so that resulted in nearly 10 kids having to go in quarantine. So it's really just a space issue at this point under the current guidance. I think all of us are in the position to hope that sooner rather than later, we can get back to that normal operation of kids going down to the cafeteria. I know our cafeteria staff is chomping at the bit for that to happen. And our teachers are as well, not having to have kids eat in the classroom, but that's really the biggest preventative measure we have to keeping kids distancing, because they are taking their masks off, so we're able to spread them out a little bit better in the event there's an outbreak. Some of those kids won't be forced to quarantine. So I'm as hopeful as you are.
I respect the answer. Thank you.
Okay, to continue with my comments, I was also at the 9/11 memorial service on the 20th anniversary at the firehouse on Weymouth Road. I want to thank all the fire departments in town and even the visiting ones from Warehouse Point and Bradley Field. It is important that we do remember that day every year. It's just, and they do a great job by bringing it. We do have a few parts of the tower there that they've dedicated 10 years ago. So just please keep that day in our hearts and all the lives we lost that day. And then after that, I did attend the prayer service, as Mr. Ungar said, and that was well received. I would like to see more people there. They're trying to do it on a regular basis on some Saturdays, so just keep your eye on the schedule. And then after that, I attended the Splash Park ribbon cutting, and that was also well received. And I drove by there Sunday, and it was well used. And I know I'm not supposed to say this. I promised I was going to say something on the 24th of August at our regular meeting, but that meeting was canceled. And I didn't say anything 2 weeks ago, but I'm going to say it anyway, because what are they going to do, fire me? I'm out of here in 4 meetings. So vote yes for the referendums. That's all I can say about it. Vote yes on the 4 R's. If what you see at Parkman and also at the playground here that they just put in, more to come. But you got to vote yes for those 4 R's. And again, you want to fire me, all right, whatever.
I have a question.
Oh, yes, Mr. Ungar, yes, you had a question, I'm sorry.
Yeah, just a quick thing for the superintendent, assistant superintendent. I typically try to go for a walk in the morning, and a couple of the students, I ran across a couple of middle school students, so I thought, well, I'll ask them. They were standing out there. And they, so I asked them about the mask, because I was concerned about the mask issue that was brought up, and I said, I didn't lead them anyway. I just asked them their opinion about the masks, and one of the young ladies, there's two young ladies, middle school girls, and their dad was there, and they said, one girl said she hated them because she had the vaccine and didn't understand why she has to wear a mask if she had the vaccine. The other girl said, she kind of shrugged her shoulders and just said, I just do what they tell me to do. And so, but then the other girl, the one who had the vaccine, says they don't even give us a mask break anymore. So I'm trying to understand, why don't we give our students a mask break? Why was that taken away?
I wasn't at the conversation you had with this young student, but I've had conversations with all our principals, and they're still instilling mask breaks. So that's news to me if this young lady didn't get a mask break.
Okay.
Because we still have the tents at all the schools, correct?
And the weather's been, we're trying to do at all of our schools as much outside activity as possible. So maybe it wasn't under the guidance of a mask break, but it was an opportunity for kids to go outside and take their masks off. But all of our principals are doing a great job scheduling time for kids to get outside to relieve themselves from wearing the mask. But again, I wasn't part of that conversation. I don't know what this particular student was referring to.
Okay. Thank you.
And one final thing, I was also at the council meeting last Tuesday, and Councilor Crisati mentioned the traffic on Enfield Street. And all in well, fine, but I just want to remind everybody, I was promised a stoplight at Enfield High, and I was lied to by the state of Connecticut. I was lied to. I sat either in this chair or this chair, back when we were still in the high school committee, telling you all a traffic light's coming. Then we were told that they're going to replace the one, instead of replacing the one on the corner of Moody and North Maple, they were going to make that a four-way stop and use that money to put in a traffic light. Again, I was lied to by the state of Connecticut because, as you see, the traffic light is still, the old one is still hanging, and we still don't have a traffic light. So please, I'm reaching out to our state reps and to the governor, whoever's watching, I want my traffic light. It's not that much to ask. You go to Newington, they have one in front of their high school, that you go to around the town. I said this before, I'll say it again. My air conditioner was down most of the summer, so we did day trips around the state. You can't believe how many traffic lights are being replaced in this state. And being replaced, the perfectly good traffic lights are being taken down and putting new ones up. So the money is there, but it's being wasted on these other projects instead of what I was promised. We had it, we were promised as a building committee it was to be done. And the state, we can't do it because it's a state road. So I will just keep pressing on, and after I'm out of this office, I will keep pressing on as well. If I have to go down and rattle some people down to DOT or whatever, I will. So I'm warning my wife now that I do have a job after this seat, so. But I will get that traffic light, and if whatever it takes. So.
I'll have to engrave your name in it.
Yes, yes, you can dedicate it to me, and maybe hang me from it. I don't know. Anyway, that being said, let's continue with unfinished business. We have none. New business, we have none. So we move to board committee reports, curriculum.
This Thursday, first meeting of the school year.
Finance.
Yes. Yes, the Finance Committee did meet, and I'll be reporting on that.
Policy.
Policy did not meet. We'll be meeting at our next meeting.
Leadership did not meet. Joint facilities also hasn't met. We're waiting for the roof. The Eli Whitney and Hazard Memorial roof contract to finally go through the town process to get it out to contract. Get it out to bid, I'm sorry, get it out to bid. JFK, we had a report tonight. Thank you again. Awesome job you guys are doing. Joint security, I don't have anything to report? No?
No.
We didn't meet. We'll be meeting again soon.
Joint insurance, we haven't met also since. Youth Mental Health and Wellness Advisory Committee, no report. So with that, we move to number 13, approval of minutes, special Board of Ed meeting minutes of August 31st, 2021. Do I have a motion to accept the minutes?
No,
I have a correction.
Yeah, we have an issue.
Well, let's do the motion, then we'll do the correction.
Okay.
So who motioned? Sure.
Motion. Scott motion.
Motion by Mr. Ryder, seconded by Ms. LeBlanc. What is the correction, please?
Okay. Kathy, under number 14, approval of account and payroll.
It's at the bottom of page 11.
Oh, okay. There you go. That works too. Mr. Ungar moved, seconded by, I think that should be me, not Joyce. Yeah. I'd like to.
Well, she was here in spirit. She was here in spirit. I think I heard her say second, by the way.
She said something, but it wasn't a second.
She's watching right now, so please don't.
And gold star for Mrs. Thurston, who spotted that. Great job.
Yes.
So do I have, do I have a vote in as amended? That's what I'm trying to say. Vote as amended. All in favor? We have 8 in favor. Any against? Any abstentions? 1 abstention. And that being said, we get to number 14, Mr. Approval of accounts and payroll, Mr. Ungar.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The Finance Committee did meet on September 13th, and So Enfield Public Schools, Enfield, Connecticut, fiscal year 2022, certification of expenditures. We met on September 13th.
Oh, it's not on the agenda, yes.
So it's got to be tabled.
Ah,
Can we motion to add it to the agenda? Suspend the rules and add it to the agenda? So I need a motion to suspend the rules and add the approval of which month?
this is the approval of
July and
August.
Of 2021.
Yeah.
Under 14, accounts, approval of accounts and payroll.
We'll allow
Moved by
it.
Ms. LeBlanc, seconded by Mr. Ryder. Roll call for that? Go ahead, roll call.
Mr. LeBlanc,
For.
Mrs. LeBlanc,
Yes.
Mrs. Pickett,
Yes.
Mr. Ryder,
Yes.
Mrs. Thurston, Mr. Ungary,
Yes.
Mrs. Acree,
Yes.
Mrs. Cushman,
Yes.
Chairman Krizel.
Yes.
Motion passes.
So, Mr. Unger, you can just start over, please.
Okay. So the Finance Committee did meet on September 13th, 2021. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And to review the financial statements for the month of July and August year to date, and to examine various documents related to finances. Our review concluded that there is nothing significant to report to the board. I'd like to make a motion that we accept the superintendent's certification as follows. I hereby certify that in the months of July and August, total expenditures amount to, in July, $1,474,118.74. In August, $1,689,601.23. It's broken down between payroll totaling in July $815,127.63, and in August, payroll totaling $539,166.63, and other accounts totaling in July $658,991.09, and in August, other accounts totaling $1,150,434.60. All payments have been made in accordance and with the approved budget and are properly accounted for within the books of accounts. Copies of approval for check invoices are properly documented.
Motion by Mr. Ungary. Second. Seconded by Ms. Thurston. Any discussion? All in favor? Show of hands. We have 9 in favor, 0 against. Mr. Ungary.
Okay, so this is for fiscal year 2022, the certification of grants and Head Start expenditures. The Finance Committee met on September 13th, 2021 to review financial statements for grants during the month of July and August year to date and to examine various documents related to finances. Our review concluded that there is nothing significant to report to the board. I'd like to make a motion that we accept the superintendent's certification as follows. I hereby certify that in the months of July and August, the total grant and Head Start expenditures amount to, in July, $131,942.77, and in August, $199,919.34. And that's broken down between payroll totaling in July $130,533.73, and payroll totaling in August $114,598.48, and other accounts in July totaling $1,409.04, and in August $85,320.86. All payments have been made in accordance with the approved budget and are properly accounted for within the books of accounts. Copies of approval for check invoices are properly documented.
Moved by Mr. Ungary, seconded by Ms. Thurston. Any discussion? All in favor? We have 9 in favor, 0 against. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Number 15, correspondence and communications. Ms. LeBlanc.
Yes, we actually got something from the State Board of Education today. It says, "Dear Board of Education members and superintendents, As members of the Connecticut State Board of Education, we recognize the significant challenges currently facing our schools and school leaders. As such, we want to take this opportunity to acknowledge the critical work that you continue to do in support of our schools, faculty, families, and students, especially during the COVID-19 pandemic. We applaud you for all your efforts to keep our schools open and safe and our students learning. What we have learned during the past school year and what is supported by recent assessment data is that students learn best in person with their educators and friends, and in-person instruction is only made possible through the consistent employment of a series of mitigation efforts and protocols to support safe and healthy school environments. We understand how stressful these situations can be in the face of opposition and truly appreciate your courage and commitment to supporting your school's staff, families, and students. The only way we can get through this pandemic is to work together in support of our communities. We always invite everyone to the table to provide input and collaborate, and we encourage you to continue this practice wherever possible. For the sake of our children and their continued success in learning, we join you in placing them at the center of all our discourse and our efforts. In support, the members of the State Board of Education.
Thank you. And something I forgot during my comments, I want to shout out to my family watching on YouTube. So, extended family down in Florida. So, I need a motion to go in executive section per prospective supply contract. Moved by Mr. Ungar, seconded by Mr. Ryder. All in favor? Is that nine? Nine in favor? 9 in favor, 0 against. We will not be coming back to television, so good night, everyone, and thank you.